Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing very well and enjoying your time, either online school or at home, just whiling away with some activities. We are very happy that we can join you online for these second Saturday lectures, which have been very popular in the past many decades. We have been conducting the second Saturday lecture series in IUCAA at the Chandrasekhar Auditorium, and they have been very successful, and people have responded every time, every month that we hold them. We have a full house, and so many students and teachers join us here. So, of course, during the our lockdown situation, we have been missing you all, and we thought we'll go online and ask you to probably look at the lectures which have been recorded, and several good speakers have given us a good amount of knowledge through these lectures. And we also thought that just to make it a more unique thing, we would basically take questions online just around the end of the lecture time. We are doing this twice a month because there are several lectures, and we are really hoping that the lockdown finishes soon and you don't have to do this all the time on this platform. However, we will keep looking at them and hope that you will join us very often in the future. So I am Samir Dhurde, and of course you have looked at our lecture that we have circulated in the emails and our other social media events. So we can see that several people have joined together, and I'm just following that there are some viewers online who want to ask some questions related to the present lecture. So quickly give you a brief look at the lecture. Basically, I had talked about the non-rocket science of the moon, because we are all very excited that humanity is trying to go back to the moon with efforts going towards the Artemis plan and the next generation astronauts being trained on doing various activities on the moon. But that is all rocket science. That's kind of beyond us right now. At school level, we want to focus on things that you can learn and you can probably understand by yourself. And then later, if you get interested in that, then you can go on to the rocket science. So we discussed a few details about the the concept of mass, which is very important, and how weight on the moon changes, but the mass doesn't. We also looked at some other aspects of the moon being our natural satellite. We have the several, as I said, the tidbits and facts which were discussed. So we discussed the center of motion of the Earth-Moon system. We discussed what is center of mass, which you've already learned in school, but then we discussed it in terms of what happens to the Earth and Moon, and how the Moon sometimes moves closer to the Earth and the farther to the Earth because its orbit is elliptical. Because of that, we also get things like phases of the Moon. Because of the orbit, we get the phases of the Moon, and since it's tidally locked to us, it's the same phase of the moon always is towards us. So we always see the same face. But then there's another confusing word probably. It's called the phase. So phase, P-H-A-S-E, is the amount of the moon that you can see on any particular day or night. So that can range from a very tiny crescent to a big fat gibbous moon to a full moon, right? So we discussed that and how they happen, and we also realized that the moon doesn't always change its shape only during the whole month. Sometimes on some rare occasions we see the moon changing its shape in a few hours, and that happens to be an eclipse. But that's very different reason. There's a very different reason for these eclipses happening compared to what makes the phases happen. So eclipse happens just because the moon passes through the Earth's shadow, and then some part of it gets darkened by the Earth's shadow, and then later it gets released because the moon comes out of the shadow. So we have that a basic summary of the talk. We discuss something about the chemistry of the moon, the geometry of the moon, and how you can do some photography, or how you can yourself do some mapping of the moon if you have a small telescope or binocular. So there are some activities you could do. Some fun things were suggested with the citizen science programs like Zooniverse, and we also talked about the supermoon. Well, that's all good. And in that month, we happen to have a very special event. That's why we asked you to come join us for that lecture. This month, in fact, today, we are also celebrating an international event. This is not an event in the sky, so there's nothing happening in the sky with the moon as a natural phenomenon. But all over the world, people are celebrating this as International Observe the Moon Night. So in the evening, the moon will be nice and gibbous, and you will be able to see it all yourself. Now the thing is to join all the students and learners together from across the world and enjoy this particular evening together with astronomy as our common focus. Right? So some common activity which is done all over the world, and I ask you to join it as well. So it's the International Observe the Moon Night, which is being celebrated today. So that is a summary and quick revisiting the lecture. Now I'll quickly check with the questions which are coming on our channel here. So give me a moment till I shift to that. So we have a lot of students watching us, and I can see that there are good morning everyone questions coming up. I'll just read them out, and then we all can then get the answer. Okay. So one of the questions is from Latika, and she asks, we call lunar eclipses with different names like strawberry moon, blue moon, big moon. Why is that so? Okay, so just to clear up, we don't call lunar eclipses with these names. We call full moons with these names. And so lunar eclipses are rare, and if a lunar eclipse happens, it's usually always called the blood moon or the red moon, because as I have explained in the lecture, the Earth's atmosphere is basically not completely opaque. Yeah? The Earth's surface is, and so it can obstruct all the light reaching the moon during a lunar eclipse. But the atmosphere lets in some of the reddish light, and that falls onto the moon and is reflected back to us, giving a reddish hue to the moon. So therefore, if it's a lunar eclipse, it's invariably be called a blood moon or a red moon or something like that, never a blue moon. Well, the other names like blue moon, the blue moon is in fact not a term for any particular full moon. It comes as a term used for time when there are two full moons in the same month, and that doesn't happen very often, although there's a possibility for it to happen. The month actually having 31 days, and the lunar cycle being only 28 days, 29 days. So therefore, it's always possible that there will be two full moons in a single month, but then it happens when the full moon is on the first of the month and the month is 31 days long, like in August or August or so. So that would be called a blue moon. The other names like strawberry moon, hay moon, wolf moon, farmer's moon, etc. are more of Western names, and these are not. I mean, you won't find your parents or grandparents talking about a strawberry moon, for example, right? So those are names which are Western names. They come from their culture, and I'm not saying that is bad, but the thing is, it's related to things which happened in their own surroundings, and they wanted to differentiate between seasons, etc. So they gave these names. In India, of course, we also have these moons. Like very soon we'll have Narari Purnima, Guru Purnima has just happened. We'll have Kozagiri Purnima, right? So these are the celebrations of a full moon, which at some point of time used to have a very important role to play in our planning of the yearly occurrences. So therefore, we have several names for them. Now, none of these are related to anything happening on the moon. The moon basically keeps going around the Earth, keeps changing its phases, and it will keep doing it for billions of years that we are going to be, the moon is going to be here. Okay, so lovely, I'm getting more questions, and one more question is from Alindo Lahiri, asking, is there water on the moon? Well, yes, there are traces of water that we have found, and in fact, the proud thing is that the confirming trace was given by the instrument carried by Chandrayaan-1, which was an Indian lunar mission. So yes, there is water, but then it's not in the form that me and you are accustomed to having it. So we can't have it for breakfast or lunch or during the drinks break. So the moon has a surface temperature which goes much below 0 degrees centigrade, and it therefore is not possible for liquid water to exist on the moon, on the surface. I would say even below the surface. So the water present there is either in the form of compounds or is in the form of ice. Now this is not so easy to find because over the many billions of years of evolution, the the surface has changed and it's got covered with various things. So we may not be able to directly find it, and that's why the missions which are going there are very important. That we try to locate usable water on the moon. We'll have to extract it first thing. I mean, there'll be several challenges, like how do you get that water out from the surface. So sometimes you should try breaking a piece of ice, right? So when we think of water, we think of it as very fluid and very soft, but when it freezes, it's really hard. It's like a rock. So basically, we'll have to have mining equipment to get that water out, and then we'll have to heat it up and convert it into usable form. So those will be challenges in the future, and real engineers would be required for that. So it's not like only astronomers have some purpose on the moon. No, engineers will have a huge purpose to play in the coming century. Right. Okay. So can humans live on the moon? Sarthak Wagmare asks, and it's a related question. Yes, I think we should be able to colonize moon, not in the far future. I'll give it a century maybe, but it could happen earlier. It's definitely possible to live on the moon given you carry your own resources there, right? However, right now it's very costly to do this. It's costly not just in resources, it's costly in terms of risky maneuvers that the people who are going there have to carry out. So we need to understand the moon much better before we can basically take our family and go there either for a vacation or live there, shift there and live there. There will be several things which we will not be able to do on the moon, like farming, etc., on a large scale, where you can just go to a river, make a canal to your farm, and do things. Things will be difficult, very difficult. The gravity conditions will make it even more difficult to exist there. But I'm sure in the future we will have, like humans, we may have people living on the moon. Okay, so and I think somebody is asking, how was the moon formed? Well, this is a question which is being explored by astronomers and scientists, including geologists and meteorologists, etc. So we have some indications of how the moon have formed. We have looked at the composition, the chemistry of the moon, and discovered that we do not have the exact composition on the moon as compared to the Earth. So it's not very same. So the most popular theory right now is that some big kind of object came towards the Earth earlier in the evolution of the solar system, like when the sun had just formed and the solar system planets were just cooling down. So that basically allowed us to some objects not to have a steady orbit, and they could come close to the Earth. Maybe one of them either came close to the Earth. So some people say that if it was a very big object, it could have pulled a piece of the Earth outward because it's all fluid. So a drop would come out and form the moon. But then it was not completely taken away by the object. It could, in fact, the most popular theory is that a smaller object actually came and hit the Earth, and some part of that object and some part of the Earth's object, Earth's material, combined together to form the moon. And this is a very probable theory, and it would explain why the other big object which should have formed the moon rock is not seen now. It's very probable that Mars would have come to the orbit of the Earth. So this is the most probable theory that Earth was hit by some object, and piece of it was taken away and it amalgamated with the other object's material, and then these two objects stuck together in an orbit, and they are currently going around. So that's what we think happened when the moon formed. Okay, so I have a question about the Apollo missions. Yes, so the Apollo missions were very challenging missions because they were the first time we were attempting to go to the moon. However, they were not the only missions. There were other missions happening from Russia, and we should study history properly so that we know proper emphasis of all the efforts that have been done by humanity. So Apollo missions, lunar missions, were all there going to enable man to land on the moon, and these happened in the 60s and 70s, and all the missions, the 13 missions which went there, have been very successful, and many of them actually allowed from Apollo 11 onwards. The missions, the 6 missions, allowed actually human beings to land on the moon. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin were the first 2 people up there, and then the rest of the missions actually carried out some experiments. They in fact brought back some rock samples from the moon as well. So there are several things which have happened, and all of these Apollo missions, of course, they chose their landing places very nicely. So before the Apollo missions went there, the survey missions were sent so that they could survey the locality of the moon with very high resolution cameras and very special sensors, so that it could be judged that that place where the Apollo mission is going to go is very safe for landing. So yeah, they were very challenging missions, and in fact, if you go to the playlist on our channel, which is called Moon Challenge, there's a nice activity I suggest for all of you to do, and also in that I describe the places where the Apollo missions landed and some more details about the missions themselves. So do have a look on our channel in the other playlist called the Moon Challenge. Okay, so now about observing. Yes, so tonight is the International Observe the Moon Night, and of course we would love to have you all look at the moon at least, if not look at it through telescopes or binoculars. It's pretty safe to look at the moon through a telescope or binocular. This is not like the sun, which is many hundreds of times brighter than the moon. So have a look. Don't worry about that. You don't need any special filter or anything. And in fact, today the moon is not completely full, so it will not be so bright. Therefore, you might be able to actually catch some nice objects on what is called the terminator. Have a look at the lecture to understand what the terminator on the moon is. So go ahead, have a look. Are there any tips to observe the moon from the heavily lighted, polluted sky? Well, the tip would be try to go outside. But in fact, the moon happens to be quite bright, so there's no special tip required to observe the moon. The light pollution of the city hardly affects it because it happens to be really bright, unless it's thin crescent or so. So go ahead, just have a look at the moon. If you have a telescope binocular, that's the tip. So if you can use it to collect more light and make the moon look bright. Is there a connection between a moon and a lunatic person? Well, yes, I would answer it in a funny way. I sometimes call myself a lunatic. And that's because I love the moon. I love the moon. I enjoy looking at it. I enjoy knowing about it, and I wish I could go there, right? And I could actually contribute to some scientific study of the moon. However, that's a different lunaticity, and just the fact that the moon excites me doesn't mean that it makes me mad, right? So I don't become mad in my regular life just because the moon is getting full or it's becoming new moon or something like that. So that connection, I have no clue where this came from. It's of course there are other animals, lower animals, which do react to the moon. Okay, and there are cycles of animals which happen at night, which have a relation to the lunar cycle, like insects or birds procreating, reproducing, etc. There are cycles which are there in the nature, and there are cycles which are there in the sea because there's a connection of the moon to the tides. But then that connection doesn't apply to us. Not everything that happens in nature applies directly to us. So our cycles are very different. The modern human being is not driven by cycles of the moon. The evolution has changed us quite a lot, and therefore, any claims that the moon makes people mad on a full moon day or something like that is probably just some misconception or superstition. Okay, so I think there are now we are coming close to the last 10 minutes. So we'll take some of the scientific questions. What major changes will be, what are the aims and major changes done in ISRO's Chandrayaan-3? So I'm afraid I'm not really aware of the progress on Chandrayaan-3. It's coming up really fast, and we, of course, we would like to have the rover back again, right? And that's definitely one of the aims. So usually every project has a few backup plans. So there are usually copies of the same thing made. So I'm not going to take a guess here, and this is not official information that I'm passing on to you. But of course, we'll wish that the rover goes back, and we might even, we might even want to get some rock samples. That's probably a big wish list, and mostly scientists are interested in properly sensing and mapping the moon. That's most important. If all the people are asking about colonizing the moon, that is one of the most important things, to know the moon properly. The surface has to be known properly, accurately, and if there are any unexpected surprises left for us, that those should be taken care of. So although we were focusing more on the rover landing on the surface for Chandrayaan-2, it's the orbiter which is doing most of the good work and giving the scientists most of the data. So as a scientific-minded person, you should also think of the more important thing, more useful thing, rather than the most exciting thing. Good. So now there's a question: how will we take oxygen there, and will we plant trees or keep wearing spacesuits? As I said, taking resources from the Earth to the moon is very costly. So not just in terms of resources, but in terms of money, actual money. So in fact, if you see, if you have to send 1 kilogram of anything into space right now, just to space, not to the moon even. If you have to send anything into space, the cost of sending that right now is close to that weight in gold. Right? The cost, the value of that weight in gold. Right? So it's that costly right now. So we are not going to take like oxygen filled from here and there to there. Of course, in the beginning we will need that, but to really colonize, as we mean by colonization, as you see in science fiction stories, really have to take care of the oxygen on the moon. So we have to produce it there. So probably some machines, etc., will be carried from here, but they will have to extract the oxygen from the lunar minerals or the water even. And as I said, that is not so easy. We'll have to make the bases properly, choose the bases properly, take care of the heat, temperature, etc. also. And then planting trees, etc. might come much later. It won't be trees, I'm sure, in the near future, but it might be small plants which give us food and oxygen together. Because you see, where do we get the good soil for the plants? So all these will need to be carried, or you have to make it on the moon. That's still a long way away. Okay, so I'll take the last two questions. So in this, we are being asked, do we observe the moon in other wavelengths of light, and how does it help? So yes, there are different kinds of light which are reflected by the moon, and we can get information from there. So this is done by spectroscopes and special sensors which look at particularly that kind of light. So for example, if I'll give an example of our use of different lights. So if you want to, let's say, have a look at night vision goggles, for example. So in the dark, you want to see things which are alive or giving out heat, right? So for that, you have these, what people show, these goggles which show you a green colored image, and then the other things glowing red. Well, that's true, because the goggles are actually allowing you to sense, they have a sensor which senses infrared rays, and then it is converted into a normal image which your eye can see, right? So it's not that filter is allowing the infrared to go through. Well, that's not like it. It's just a screen which is allowing, just taking a picture in infrared and showing it to your eyes in a visual light. So similarly, we have sensors on our orbiters which look around the moon in various wavelengths, and these are reflected or absorbed by various kinds of compounds on the moon surface. So therefore, we look at the signatures of these particular compounds in our laboratories, chemical laboratories, and then we try to go there on the moon or fly above the surface of the moon and keep looking for these signatures or traces. Right? So these are characteristics of particular things, like for example water. So we will scan the surface of the moon, and particularly, of course, we can't keep scanning randomly, so we go towards the poles where it's most probable that the water is in frozen state and has not really sublimated away. So we look at the moon either by reflected light or by in some missions, some light may be thrown towards the moon, and then the reflected light can be seen. Also, we've sent sensors which have collided with the moon, and very tiny ones, and let up a cloud of things which they hit. And then the spectroscopes actually looked at various wavelengths and looked for these signatures. So these signatures of the chemical compounds may not always be in the visible light, and that's why we have to use other wavelengths to see. So that is a good question, I think. Now let me see what other questions are there. Okay. Okay. So now I think that has convinced you that we are playing enough role in going to the moon or knowing about it, and we will definitely contribute to the moon study in the future. But just to tell you about today's event, which is the International Observe the Moon Night. So I'll just share the screen with you. Just a minute. See. Okay, so this is today, 26th September 2020, and we have the International Observe the Moon Night, and people all over the world will be observing it in all countries, young or old, everybody will be observing the moon. Now, and this is this is where you can go for finding more details about the evening today. The moon.nasa.gov is a very nice site for much more information on the moon, about the moon, and /observe takes you to today's event. Now, as you can see, this is for last year, and almost all countries participated in it. Right? I mean, these are registered events. I'm sure others must have participated and may not have registered. And so today it's going to be celebrated, and basically it allows us to come together and make a connection with our neighbor in space. Now for Pune, the moon today will rise in the east, on the eastern horizon at around 3 p.m. Okay, and it will be visible till close to midnight. So you have a nice a nice amount of time to observe this, and you'll be able to see the moon. If you happen to have a telescope or a binocular, then you can see that you'll be able to see some of the dark patches which are called the Maria, and some of the brighter patches which are usually part of the terras or craters. Okay, so all these things would be visible to you, and you can have a look. Also, as I said, you can have a look at you can have a look at the Moon Challenge slides and playlist on our channel, and you will definitely be able to get more information about what is there on the moon. So choose this particular day. I think it's the 9th day after new moon, so you can go ahead and have a look at it. Now, there's no particular significance of this particular day, like it's not an anniversary of something as such, but September is usually a time when most of the countries in the world have a temperate weather and favorable weather. So one of the Saturdays, the last Saturday of the month of September, usually celebrated as Observe the Moon Night, because most of the people can observe it on that day. Well, so hoping that this has kind of satisfied some of your curiosity, and we will be, of course, bringing you more such interactions, live interactions on our YouTube channel. This will happen on every second and fourth Saturday, which will be called every second Saturday of the coming months. So keep yourself subscribed to the channel, or keep returning to here this channel. Of course, we also are there on Facebook and Twitter, so you can follow us there for various other activities which are also announced. Now, other than that, of course, I hope that you will enjoy the evening today and have a look at the moon yourself. If you do, just let us know on Facebook or Twitter. Just shout out to us, tag us, and we'll be happy to know that you joined us together. I'll definitely be looking up at the moon, and the whole IUCAA team, which is in the back, working in the background, will also be very excited to look up and see what is there. Alright, so with this, we end this stream today. Do join us next month. We'll put out the notice very soon about who's the next speaker and which is the next lecture to listen to, and then who is the next speaker who you will revisit the second Saturday lecture series with. So take care, observe the moon,